Yes, welcome back to Home Studio Q&A for yet another week. This is episode 19 of our live Q&A show here on Studio Live today. If you're watching live on YouTube or Facebook, hello to you. If you have questions that you'd like answered, please throw question and your question in the live chat now. If you're watching on the replay or listening on the podcast, don't worry, we love you just as much. All you need to do is leave a comment here on the video if you're watching the video replay, or if you're listening in on the podcast, head over to studiolivetoday.com for links to all of the ways that you can get in touch. We will be jumping into some questions I've had through the week, as well as some questions from the folks here live. But first of all, I thought I would jump into a topic that I really love, and I love sort of getting into the weeds of what makes people tick. So the topic of the week this week is, why do you create music? So what is it about music that got you into creating? Why do you feel the need to put your creative soul into the world through your music? And I put this question on the community tab over on my channel. So if you go to the Studio Live Today channel and on your mobile or on your desktop, go to the community tab, you'll be able to participate in this poll. And I asked the question, what is it that makes you want to create music? And I got a gamut of responses, and it was really interesting. And especially in the times that we are here at the moment in March 2020, it is great to see that music is, for a lot of people, they say it's just what I have to do. So I'll go through some of the most common ones. So here's the number one thing I get from folks is, music is just something I have to do. I don't feel complete unless I'm creating music. So it's sort of part of you. And if you're not creating music, you almost don't feel complete. You don't feel right. So it's actually something that you need to do. Number two, a lot of folks are saying it's like therapy. It's like music therapy. It like makes them feel better when they're feeling down, when they're feeling like there's bad things going on. They're like, music can actually lift your spirit and make you feel better. I definitely agree with that one. I love that reason as well. Third reason is for the joy that it actually brings for you personally. So a lot of folks were saying things like they can take something that is something that doesn't exist in the world and create it. Someone, and I apologize, I don't have the names here, but we'll talk about some of them later. One person actually said, if I didn't create this, then no one else would. And I actually love that. In terms of why you create music, it's that you're putting something into the world that if you didn't do it, no one else is going to actually write and record and release that exact song with that exact feeling and that exact meaning. Love that. A lot of folks talked about the impact that their music has on other people. So it's something that we probably undervalue, because a lot of creators, especially sort of introverted and more humble folks, you won't really think about the impact that you have on others. But believe me, sometimes, and I've got plenty of comments on songs that I've released where people have said, Pete, this really connected with me. Like, even if it's not a song that I think is great, if the content, if the melody, if the words, if whatever really connects with someone, that can be a reason why they want to create music. And last but not least is that it's just good old-fashioned fun. Like, it really is fun. Like, music can be so enjoyable to create, to be able to work and noodle on a melody, strum a chord progression, put together a beat, bring some loops together. I don't care how you make your music. I don't care. I'm not into the whole, oh, if it's real music or fake music or virtual music or samples or loops or whatever you're using to create music. If you're putting something into the world that other people can then listen to, it's going to connect with them. And this is why we do it. So that's a number of reasons. I probably fall into all of those categories. I love doing music because it does help me. It does help other people. And I sort of have the one additional thing, which is that I make music so that I learn how to do it, so that here on Studio Live Today, I can show exactly the process that I followed, and then you can get some ideas and tips and hints about your music creation that may help you create, record, and release your best music. So that is what I wanted to put out front at the moment. I think it's we just do sometimes without thinking of the why. The what is important, the how is important, the why is often overlooked in everything we do. In fact, there's an author and a public speaker called Simon Sinek, and he wrote a book called Start With Why. If you want a really good read, if you're into sort of your motivation and business books without all the wankery, some of those self-help books can be like, empower yourself and envisage and get up every morning and look in the mirror and say, I am all powerful 10 times. Like, yeah, that stuff's okay. But this is sort of real stuff. This is saying, when you're doing something, start with the why. Don't start with what you're doing, because the what is just the thing. The why is the purpose. So basically have a purpose for what you do and then try to deliver on that purpose and have a goal and aim for that goal. And with your music, that's going to help you out big time. Righty, let's jump into some questions here. Once again, if you do have questions and you are here on the live chat, please throw question and then your question in the chat here. Otherwise, yes, we will jump into some of the pre-questions that I've had through the week. So let's dive in now with question number 1. And this is about SoundCloud. If you're not aware of SoundCloud, it is an online platform that you can release your music to, and then other folks can stream it. You can release it for free. I think it's 120 minutes at last check, or 100 minutes. You can put a lot of music up there, and then other folks can stream it for free. So Braxton Braswell, hello to you, said, when I clicked upload, it said, excuse me, the song could not be opened, and I'm on my iPhone, but I need help trying to actually upload my song to SoundCloud. Now, SoundCloud can be a challenging thing. It's not the most reliable app. If you're having issues uploading to SoundCloud, here's a few steps to follow. First of all, you need to log out of your SoundCloud, the actual app. So go into the SoundCloud app, which you should have installed on your iPhone or iPad, log out of it and log back in. Then what I'd suggest doing is closing all of your apps, turning your iPhone or iPad off, turning it back on again, and then trying to log back in and upload again. It really is, with all of these problems, about probably 20 to 30% of the time, the problem is not caused by anything tricky or anything you need to do. All you need to do is close all your apps, log out sometimes of some of your accounts, turn off your iPhone or iPad, turn it back on, log back in, and everything will be magically fixed. It's called like the universal fix. It's the old turn it off and on does often work. If you're struggling with that, I've got a heap of SoundCloud videos. So if you search YouTube for Pete Johns SoundCloud, you'll find a bunch of different videos, including an alternative method. So if you're having trouble uploading directly to SoundCloud from, say, GarageBand or any other app, it'll show you how to upload to SoundCloud with your album artwork, with your track title, with everything you need, just using your mobile browser. So that would be my additional tip there if you want to use SoundCloud to upload. Next here, we've got a question about releasing to TikTok. And it was about TikTok. So the video I did was releasing a song to TikTok using DistroKid. But the question from the boss main is slightly different. It's this: if DistroKid finds a video that uses your music, how do I see what exact videos are using my music? Any suggestions? So here's the thing. We've talked about this before, but YouTube Content ID is what we're talking about here, because DistroKid itself or any distributor doesn't actually go through and check videos and look for matches and do copyright claims. That's all done by YouTube. But what you can do is through Amuse or through DistroKid, you can enable YouTube Content ID. And when you enable YouTube Content ID, what happens is that your song is, or every other video on YouTube is scanned. And if any one of those videos is found to be using your song, it automatically puts a copyright claim on that through YouTube. And then on behalf of you, DistroKid or Amuse will recoup any revenue made on that video and send it back to you via your DistroKid or Amuse account. Now, there's a few caveats there. The video has to be monetized. So if someone's just using your song in a video that's not part of a monetized channel, that they're not having any advertising or ad revenue, they're going to get a content ID claim, but you're going to make $0.00 because you're only getting any money they make from advertising. You're not getting any, there's no other magical revenue there. So it's just the advertising dollars. So that's something to keep an eye on, and it won't work perfectly every time straight away. So if a bunch of people are using your song and you're like, hey, that's my song, I'm going to release it on YouTube Content ID, and then it's going to go and magically find the 20 videos using my song, it may take weeks, months, or even years, because it's got to crawl through every single video, and there's like literally millions of hours worth of video uploaded to YouTube every day. So it is an option that you have there. Amuse do it for free, and I did have someone confirm that even though Amuse have a pro account, it is still available on the free account for free. That's YouTube Content ID, and if you use the pro account, it's available part of that. DistroKid, it's an additional cost. I think it's around $8 a year for YouTube Content ID, YouTube money. So keep that in mind as well. And and while we're talking that, thank you to Jade. If you're watching on the video here, I do have a VIP link. If you're on the audio version, if you go to distrokid.com/VIP/Pete Johns, you can get 7% off your first year with DistroKid. So thank you to Jade. Jade does a better job of my promotion than I do. So thank you to Jade for that. Speaking of distributing through DistroKid, we've got a related question here. I made a video recently, well, actually, no, I made a video about 2 years ago about upgrading from the DistroKid Musician to Musician Plus account. So the Musician account is $19.99 per year. And what that allows you to do, well, let's take a step back. What does an online distributor allow you to do? Well, it allows you to release your music to Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, YouTube, Deezer, Amazon, and people can then buy or stream your music, and you're there. You're out there with all the big bands and all the big artists. You can be sitting next to Drake or Foo Fighters, depending on what sort of music you like. And yes, your music can be out there. So DistroKid is one of my favorite distributors because for $19.99 per year, you can release an unlimited number of songs, EPs, albums, and all the rest. What was I talking about? Yeah, the next version up, though, at $35.99 gives you some extra options. And I thought because I had this question, I would just point out exactly what those are. So you get more stats. So you get daily streaming and purchase stats for Spotify and iTunes, which is pretty cool. You can actually choose the release date of your song or album. So you can do a pre-release, which is the next one. You can make sure that your release date is exactly the date you want it. You can change the name of your record label. So if you release through DistroKid on the $19.99 account, it just says DK and then a number as your record label. When you release using the Musician Plus account, you can actually put things like Studio Live Today Records, which is what I release under. You can change the amount you charge in iTunes. So 99 cents is the standard song. You can make it 69 cents like I did for my last song to make it cheaper, or you can make it $1.29 if you want a premium price. Pre-orders we've already talked about. And the big one is you can release under a second artist name. So if you've got, say, one artist that you're using for your normal music, and then you've got another experimental instrumental artist name that you want to use to release some other music, you get 2 different names. So that is all of the things that you can do with the DistroKid Musician Plus account. Let's move to the next question. A lot of questions about distributing, mostly because I did a couple of videos, and I've got some more videos coming this week about distributing your music. So this was in response to my releasing music with Amuse.io, the free versus the pro account. So this is from Leah Ericult. And it is, so if you get Amuse free, you only have your music on Spotify for 4 weeks. So no, I wanted to clarify this because I've had a few questions around the whole timing of things and how long things take and then how it'll work. So when I mentioned 4 weeks for Amuse, that's the average length of time it takes to release your song, to have your song sent from Amuse to the stores. Then it can take another week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks to actually hit the stores. So if you're using Amuse, especially the free service from Amuse, you don't pay anything for it, but here's some of the things. You can only have one release queued up at any one time. And those releases take 4 weeks minimum to actually be pushed out to stores. So what that means is today is the 20th of March, is it? 19th of March, something like that. It is the 17th. Well done, Pete. It's the 17th of March today, 16th for some of you. 17th of March. So if I release a song with Amuse today, then it won't be until around about the 15th of April, 28 days later, that I'll be able to actually release a second song once my current song is cleared. Now, if that's an EP or an album, it's the same deal. So the thing here is, if you've got multiple songs you want to release with Amuse, your best bet is to do it as an EP or an album, because that will process all of those songs as one release and then push them all out. But once they're out there for good. So that's the good thing about Amuse, is that there's no limit there. And because it's a free account, there's no way that they're going to take your music down from the stores. The only potential risk is if Amuse don't exist anymore. So if Amuse go away, then yeah, there won't be any excuse me, then your music won't be there anymore, because the stores will just say, hey, this doesn't exist. But while Amuse exists, and there's no signs of showing that it won't, then yes, your music will be available on all the platforms to buy and stream and do other things. Let's just check in and see if we have any live questions from the folks that are here live. I think I may have seen another couple. We've got some comments to the why we want to play music. I'm just scrolling back up here. Sorry, there's lots of chat here, but we've got one question here from John Dongendorf. Would you consider doing T-shirts for chickens on Howard Street? That's a very cool idea. Funnily, I've got a lot of love. Well, when I say a lot of love, a few people have mentioned the song that I created. One of the first songs I created in GarageBand called Chickens on Howard Street. And they said they want to get a full release. They would buy a copy if I released Chickens on Howard Street. Now, John here is suggesting a Chickens on Howard Street T-shirt. I think that would be kind of cool. Like, I think if you're wearing that, people would definitely ask you, what the heck are you doing there? Why the heck, Rooney, have you got a T-shirt with chickens on Howard Street? That would be very, very weird. Let's see. I don't think we have any other question. We've got some folks saying, yeah, Goran says it's fun to learn making music. Yeah, it's totally fun to learn making music. I love it. It's really the only thing to do. Cool. We're low on comments and we're low on questions here for the folks live. So please, if you do have any questions and you are here live, then throw your question here. Whether you're on Facebook or YouTube, I will jump in and grab it. But we do have a question. I thought we'd have one that I missed there. SM Borthwick has a question here. Did you ever use your second artist name on DistroKid or any plans to? What a very good question. Short answer is no. I haven't used my second artist on DistroKid. Do I have plans to? Yes. So I had initially my idea was to do instrumental music, because what I've been finding lately is I love having music playing in the background, and this may sound a little bit sort of conceited, but I haven't found any music that exactly sort of vibes with what I want when I'm doing, say, admin work, paying bills, studying, whatever it is I'm doing. I listen to usually just some lo-fi or some chilled sort of beats, but I wanted to create my own sort of instrumental artist name where I just release all the stuff that I like to listen to. So I'll just create my own ambient instrumental sounds and then just release, just whenever I come up with an idea, release it. And then I could create my own playlist of stuff that I know that's going to gel with me when I'm doing that sort of boring admin style work. So that is the vague plan at this stage. Let me know if you think that's a cool thing, because I think maybe other folks would dig that as well, especially folks that also create with GarageBand or do mobile creating. It might be something that when you're doing the non-creative stuff, yeah, you might like to listen to that sort of stuff too, and know that it was something that was created in GarageBand. It might give you some ideas, some things to think about. So that's where my head's at the moment. But a really good question. Yes. It says, yes, record what you want to hear. Love it. Yeah. So I think, recording basically making my own selfish artist, so that I know this is just Pete's relax artist. And whenever I want to relax and whenever I want to focus, I just go and play my focus artist name on Spotify, and then I can just shuffle that, and it's just going to play a bunch of ambient stuff that's going to help me. I know it sounds a bit weird and selfish, but yeah, tell me if you think that's a terrible idea or if it's something you think would be kind of cool. Let's jump back over. We got some more questions from folks from through the week here, and we're going to start with this one. We're jumping into some GarageBand here. If you're new to the channel, I do cover a lot of GarageBand and a lot of mobile recording on iPhone and iPad. This one is how to add sections after recording in GarageBand. And a question that I had two of these questions. I've just chosen this one from Roger Paul, which is, when I change a key for a particular section, the other section's keys also change to that one section's keys. How can I keep corresponding sections' particular keys from changing? So this is one of the limitations of GarageBand on your iPhone or iPad, is that it does have automatic transposing, and you can use the follow key and tempo button to actually follow the key and tempo for all of your virtual instruments. However, if you change from, say, C major to E major, what's going to happen is it's going to change everything. It's simply going to transpose everything up those two tones from C to E. And there's no way to say, please change this section to E major, but leave this section in C major. What you need to do is actually manually transpose them. And it's not as hard and as daunting as you might think. To manually transpose, you simply go into the MIDI note editor, you highlight all of those notes, and then you can actually tap and drag them up or down. So if they're all in one section, and say you do want to transpose up 5 tones or 5 semitones from C to E, all you need to do is go in, drag a big box around all those notes, tap and hold one of the notes, and drag it up 5 semitones, release, and there you go, it's done. If you then go and change the key, it will transpose up and down from those new notes, so you do have to be conscious of that. So when I'm creating a song, I find the key that most of the song is in, and if there is a key change in the song, then that one section, if I want to just use the same pattern, I'll just need to know that I duplicate that pattern, copy, paste it in, and then I just need to transpose it up or down manually using the MIDI note editor. So that is hopefully going to help you out. But yeah, it would be great if we could have multiple key signatures, multiple time signatures, multiple tempos. All of these things are on the request list for GarageBand. Maybe it's time we do another top 10 requested features video. That might be another idea. I've got some ideas for some live shows over the next week, because we've all got some time at the moment to chat about these things. So maybe that's an idea for a live show in the next week. We'll do everyone's requested GarageBand features, and we can consolidate and bring together all of those. Let's continue on here. Another question. This is from Raider about releasing a song with Amuse. It says, I already have a song in review and I want to release another one so it can be put in the review, but it says I need to be pro. Do I need to wait for the first one to be released, or do I really need pro? Now, this is a really good question. And we talked about it briefly before. So yes, the free version of Amuse, as we discussed 2 questions ago, you need to wait the 28 days or however long, 4 weeks, before your first song is completely pushed to stores, before Amuse will allow you to push another release through. If you switch to the Pro plan, you can have as many on the go. You can do a release every day, and they'll just sort of cascade. They'll sort of stack up, and each one will be managed separately. That's one of the benefits of the Pro plan. Now, we didn't mention before, but the Pro plan with Amuse is $59.99 per year. So it's not cheap to actually release on the Pro plan, compared to DistroKid's $19.99. So my personal opinion at that point is that if you just want to get your music out there quickly with a reliable service, and do as many as you want, DistroKid at $19.99 can't really be beat at this point in time. I'm actually going to try Amuse Pro for a month and just see what the features are like, because it does have a few additional features that DistroKid doesn't have, but I'm not quite seeing the value proposition yet. So my advice would be, if you want to release a bunch of stuff, if you want to have multiple releases at once, DistroKid may be a better choice. And I know it's going to cost you $20 a year, but it's probably going to be worth it in the long run if you want to do all of those things. Next question we have here. So this is about Music Memos. And Music Memos, if you're not aware, is a very cool music recording app on your iPhone or iPad. It's a bit of a companion app to GarageBand, and it's like voice memos on steroids. So if you think voice memos, you can hit record, you can record your voice memo, you can then give it a name and a date and tags and things. That's all cool. But Music Memos records your song ideas, say it's a chord progression on guitar or some vocals or some keyboards. It then tries to work out what the chords are, so what chords you're actually playing. It then puts it on a grid, gives it a tempo, and then you can add in drums and bass and do all sorts of cool things. So if you search Pete John's Music Memos on the YouTube search engine, you'll find my complete guide to Music Memos. Question here is, though, is there a way to export all notes at one time? Short answer is no, unfortunately. So if you've got like 10 different music memo ideas, then you need to go into each one individually and then export it. So you need to export it, bring it into GarageBand, and then you can play around with it over there, or you can simply export it as its own WAV file or M4A file and then import it into GarageBand that way. But there's no kind of bulk export function or option, unfortunately. So if you have a bunch of ideas there in Music Memos, the one thing you can do is make sure you're storing your Music Memos ideas in iCloud drive as opposed to on your iPhone or iPad. That means that they'll be available on all of your devices and they'll be automatically backed up to the cloud. Yes, backing up. I did a whole video all about the ways to back up from your iPhone and iPad about 2 weeks ago. Once again, Pete John's Backup, if you search for that. Or the easier way to find all of these resources, by the way, is to go to studiolivetoday.com/GarageBand. Any of the GarageBand related resources, that's my GarageBand FAQ, where I answer all of the questions that folks have. And I'm working, probably this week, but don't hold me to that, I'm working on another more general FAQ about mobile and home recording, because I get a bunch of questions that aren't specific GarageBand questions. So I want to have an FAQ that's about music distribution, about songwriting, about everything to do with mobile and home recording, the gear side of it, how to connect audio interfaces and how to use MIDI keyboards and all of that. So that is in the works at the moment, but hopefully that helped you. Fiorenzo, that was from Fiorenzo Santaboni, very cool name. Hopefully, yeah, unfortunately the bearer of bad news, but there's a lot of options that Music Memos actually has, and you can indeed download Music Memos for free. It's free from the App Store, and if you're here live, Jade has popped a link there in the chat that you can actually go to download Music Memos, which is very, very cool. I think we've got a couple more questions here. This one is from George Hilborn that says, "Hey Pete, can you use a DAW controller on GarageBand iOS? If so, which ones work? Thanks." So a controller. So a control surface is not able to be used with GarageBand, not on the iPhone or iPad. You can use some with GarageBand on the Mac, I believe, and definitely on Logic Pro X, but you can't on GarageBand iOS. What you can use is a MIDI keyboard controller. So the functions that are supported, and I've got a video again, if you search Pete Johns MIDI keyboard, the functions that are supported are the actual touch, so the velocity of the note that you're hitting on your MIDI keyboard, the aftertouch, so the removing of the note, sustain is supported, pitch bend is supported, modulation is supported, and that's about it off the top of my head. If you're looking to use faders or buttons, drum pads, so some of the drum pads will be supported, but they're not programmable within GarageBand. So whatever they line up with in GarageBand is what they're going to play. So there is what I would call limited support for MIDI controllers, mostly for keyboards, very little for any other sort of control surface. So if you're hoping to have a cool, like use a tone port or something that's going to be a cool control surface to ride your automation fader, that's not possible in GarageBand iOS. Once again, I feel like today I'm being the bearer of bad news answering a lot of these questions, but I just wanted to be upfront and give you the right information. A few more to get through here from Pansit PHGT. This is around how to record vocals in GarageBand. So they say, "I will use Focusrite, but I heard the phantom power of a condenser is bad for iPad. Just asking." Now, this is interesting. I've never had any problems and I've never heard of any issues with phantom power being bad for iPad, especially if you're going through an interface. And even if you're asking, is it bad? Like, does the Focusrite not provide enough power? Probably what you're hearing about here is that there are some power-related issues with using devices with an iPhone or iPad. And my number one recommendation to work around this is to use a powered USB hub. I've talked about this a bunch, and I've got a bunch of video. Once again, if you go to Studio Live Today studiolivetoday.com/GarageBand, or if you just search the website or search my YouTube channel for powered USB hub, you'll see the one I recommend there, the 10 DAC 4-port hub. It's about $20. And what you do with that is you plug your Lightning to USB adapter. So yes, you still need the Lightning to USB adapter to change your USB into a Lightning plug, but then you plug that, instead of straight into your device, you plug that into a powered hub, and then you plug your devices into the hub. What that does is it makes sure that something like, so if you're using a Focusrite or Focusrite Scarlett 2i2, which is a very common interface, that it's getting enough power. It's getting consistent level of power. When you turn phantom power on, when you're using your microphones, it's going to be 100% fine. Now, you can work around that just by using the Lightning port on the Lightning to USB 3 adapter, and it should still work. But then if you want to add something like a MIDI keyboard or a USB flash drive or a mouse and keyboard, then you're not going to be able to add that. I love the flexibility of a powered USB hub because you can add a bunch of stuff. I think we have, is this our last question? Yes, the last question of the day is, this was in response to one of my videos recently, about a year ago, where I talked about the difference between like XLR and TRS and high Z, all of these different connections. And the question here is, my edifier only have RCA inputs. How can I connect to a Scarlett Solo? So without going into the details or knowing exactly what device we're talking here into what, the things to consider here, and I've done another video which is balanced versus unbalanced, where I explain the difference between the different cable types. So if you have any device that uses RCA for its input or output, RCA are those little composite component plugs. They're usually red and white for audio. You know the ones. If you've ever had a VCR or a DVD player, you'll know these. They're stereo plugs, little RCA plugs. They are unbalanced, so they're not sending a balanced audio signal. So it's not going to be, it is going to be subject to interference and a few other things, but generally speaking, it's very fine for the home studio. If you're then plugging that into something that has balanced inputs, so if I grab this one, and for those that are on the audio version, you're not really going to be able to see what I'm showing here, but you can see on the Steinberg UR22C, we have two inputs there, and they are actually a combo jack, which has a TRS plug. So that's going to be your standard 1/4-inch plug, but a TRS version. So what you basically need for this is to be able to convert your cable. And if you've been working in a home studio for any length of time, you've probably already started your cable collection. But if you have more than one piece of gear, you've probably got some cables like RCA to RCA, RCA to 3.5 millimeter if you need to go from a headphone jack into a device, or what I use a lot of for some older devices that have RCA output to go into my TRS input is you can actually get RCA to, so dual RCA to dual mono TRS cables. So just look around for the different types of cables. If you go over to my gear guide, which is at studiolivetoday.com/gear, then you'll be able to actually see the full range that I have there. I'm trying to find the banner. There it is, studiolivetoday.com/gear. Scroll down to the bottom because I've got the most commonly used cables in the home studio. They're all listed there at the bottom of my gear guide, and you can take a look at all of those and find the right cable to connect your stuff to your other stuff. Let's jump over because I think we had a couple of final questions here too in the live chat, and I'll see if we can answer those before we finish up. Just scrolling back up here. Yes. We've got a question here from Lightning Bolt. Hello to you. I don't think I've seen your name around here. I hope you're doing well. Say hello too and let us know where you're from. I have a question. What artists inspire you? It's an interesting question. I'm inspired by a lot of different artists. So originally my inspiration for my music came from a lot of grunge and punk from the 90s. So I sort of grew up as a child of the late 80s, early 90s into the mid 90s. So it was a lot of bands like Pearl Jam, Nirvana, Green Day, The Offspring. Those sort of bands were actually inspiring me back then. And that's why I wanted to be in, and I was in, a 3-piece sort of punk rock alternative band to start with. I then sort of got more into more of the piano bass, sort of slightly more ballady, softer kind of rock. And that's where Ben Folds and bands like the Whitlams, I got into REM, Crowded House, a lot of these other bands that were more the acoustic guitars and the pianos and the more subtle arrangements as opposed to just, power chords and big hard hitting drums and bass. And then sort of later on I've expanded out. So now I like a bit of hip hop, I like a bit of R&B, I like old jazz and blues, love listening to some classical. I'll sit down and listen to classical music for a couple of hours just in the background when I'm doing things. So I'm inspired by music in general. I'm inspired by anything that creates an emotion, that creates a feeling, and that can come through the actual music. It can come through the lyrics. It can come through the arrangement, the way that it's actually put together. I just love listening to everything. And these days, and I think Jade Starr mentioned this on a similar post, I listen to a lot of things produced by other people because I actually like knowing the person behind the music and then knowing what they're producing and joining the dots between their personality and their music. And I think we're going to see more and more of that as we have these more sort of a lot of mobile and home creators and we're creating in their own home studios and we're coming together as communities. I know that even within the Studio Live Today community, a lot of folks are now listening to each other's music and jumping into each other's YouTube channels, not because of the whole sub for sub, let's grow together, be YouTube friends. None of that, because we're all creators. Most of us, 78% of us are creators. And as I did in a recent poll, and we're all sort of wanting to find out what other people are doing. And as we learn more about other people and about their music, I think it's just so much cooler when you're listening to music that you can then go back to the person that said, hey, I love what you did in that second chorus. Can you tell me how you did that? Because I'd love to incorporate something like that in my music. So I'm inspired by that, to be honest, by seeing other people recording what they want to do. We've got a question here from Bubba. Says, is it only Serbian types of input that can override the follow key function? Is it certain? Is only certain types of input you can override the follow key function? I can't quite follow the question. I'm sorry. Oh, certain. Yes, okay, it is certain. So you've corrected that. Only certain types of input you can override the follow key function. Yeah, so it's only virtual instruments that you can actually change. So, and it's a good follow on from that. So any of your recorded tracks, so your audio recorded tracks, your vocal tracks, your recorded guitars, any of your blue tracks, they're not going to pay attention to your tempo, your key, or any of your other things, or your follow tempo and follow key. It's only your green and your yellow, so only your virtual instrument tracks that will actually work with the follow key function there. We'll just check if there's any final questions here. We've got a question here from Washburn. Has a question. When uploading a pic to DistroKid, can you use the same image for all songs indefinitely? Use the same image for all songs? No, I don't believe so. What you could do is use the same image but change the text. So if you notice that there's some bands that kind of do that, they have their logo and they might just change the color or the text. If you have exactly the same one for two songs, I think it would probably be rejected by some stores, and it would probably be confusing too. What you can do, of course, is have that one artwork for your whole album, and then every song on that album will use that artwork. So that is definitely one thing that you can do and you can consider. Apart from that, yeah, I would just change it up for each song anyway. Even if you just change the color, like I said, you could have the exact same thing, but just change the color and you'd be good to go. So hopefully that helps out. So Jade has a follow-up. She says you can use a controller with the app Launchpad as an inter-app audio into GarageBand. That's the best you will get. Good point. I haven't played around with Launchpad or much inter-app audio at all, but Jade I know has. So that's a good tip there. If you do want to use some sort of controller, control surface, MIDI controller outside of a MIDI keyboard, yeah, you may need a third-party app that you can control via inter-app audio. And don't forget that inter-app audio is being deprecated in iOS 13, which means it is going away. It's not gone away yet, but it will go away eventually. So any apps you use that use inter-app audio have a limited lifespan, and hopefully the app developers will move over to AUV3 audio unit plugin. If that meant nothing to you, don't worry about it. I've got some videos coming up on the channel where I'll be talking more about AU plugins and inter-app audio to explain that in more detail. We are going to have to finish up there because we are already running super long here, but I wanted to say a big thank you to everyone for your ongoing support. I hope you are all doing well and looking out for each other. Yeah, the Studio Live Today community, as I've said in recent posts, is a wonderful group of people. You all support me, you all support each other. And yeah, why do we create music? Well, there's a lot of reasons, but one of the reasons is that we can connect with a wonderful community like we have right here on this channel. If you did get some value out of this show today, hit the like button if you're watching the video. If you're listening to the podcast, subscribe and you'll get updated whenever new episodes drop. And of course, you can always head over to studiolivetoday.com. Check out my gear guide, my FAQ, links to all of my videos, and you can search the more than 900 videos that we have here on the channel right there on studiolivetoday.com. Thanks again for watching and for listening, and I'll see you next time.